Good morning, good evening, wherever you're listening from. I am Dr. Canute White, and you are watching, listening, Canute Exploration, your topic in a podcast, reaching out to you from Miramar, Florida. How you all doing? We have celebrated Mother's Day a couple of weeks ago, and it's now time for Father's Day, June 19, 2022. And my guest is going to be talking to us about divorced father is experienced. Says that fathers that might have been going through, many fathers are going through a lot at this time, uh, to include divorce and being a single parent. And you'd understand, some of you would understand the challenges that these parent fathers have to be going through. And we're going to talk about that and other things so as to encourage you, so as to empower you, that is, on this Father's Day. And not necessarily on this Father's Day, but throughout the year, throughout time, right? As you go through the challenges of divorce and other challenges as a single parent daddy, right? And I'm going to be talking to a very important person who can tell you a lot on Canute Exploration, your topic in a podcast. Let Jude into the studio. Hey, Jude, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well, Dr. White. Thanks for having me.
Nice to have you to talk with me on Canute Exploration, your topic in a podcast. And it's important that I ask you first, who is Jude? Who are you? Talk to me about you as an individual, professionally, etc.
So my name is Jude Sandvall, and I am the Divorced Dadvocate. And what I do is I help dads create a healthier and less traumatic divorce. And that was brought about by my own very challenging, high conflict divorce. It's going to be almost 9 years ago, coming up in a couple of weeks. And I have three daughters who are now 16, 14, and 12, but were 6'4", and 2 at the time that that the divorce started. So it's been a long journey, obviously, and I saw a need for support for dads, particularly going through divorce. And divorce is easily ranked as one of the top, if not the top, most stressful, difficult things that anybody is ever going to go through in their life.
Yeah.
And as a dad, the dynamic is even more different, because you're a dad and you have children, and then depending upon a dynamic, you're either going to be a single dad handling kids where you may have not been doing that before, or you're going to be a dad that's been involved all the time, and you're not going to have your children around half the time, which was my circumstance, which is very difficult and challenging. And that's, there's a myriad of things to go through. So,
all right. Interesting. And I like the term dadvocate, divorced dadvocate. We'll talk more about that. But before we go into some other stuff, ask some of the questions that are relevant to the episode, let me ask you about your childhood. I often ask my guests about their childhood. Tell me about you at age 7, 12.
Yeah. So me as a child, I grew up in the Midwest outside of Chicago. I grew up in a solidly middle class, very diverse neighborhood. And I participated in all those things that little boys participate in sports and music and all kinds of stuff. Was very curious and ambitious and interested in hyper and crazy and playing with kids and running about back when kids ran about all day long.
Right.
And so my father was an electrician, and my mother was a stay-at-home mom. And so that was life. I got very involved in competitive ice hockey. I started playing when I was 5, but then really focused on that around age 13 and 14, and ended up winning a couple national championships as an amateur, and played Division I ice hockey, and then grew up, got my degree in economics, and I got married and had kids, but so my childhood was normal from the outside, but also marred with a lot of trauma and difficulties
Yeah.
with parents that had some undiagnosed mental illnesses. That
Yeah.
then, as a child, oftentimes you create and figure out these adaptive behaviors to get through your childhood, which
Yeah.
then don't serve you in your adult life, which even at this point in my life, I'm still learning and dealing with and figuring out and trying to find a better way to live. So that's a
Yeah.
little bit about my childhood.
Interesting. Sigmund Freud talked about the child is the father of the man. The childhood that we have. I've had challenging childhood as well. Actually influence our adulthood somehow, and it's critical. But let me
Well, and can I make a comment on that
yeah,
too,
please.
Dr. White? Because even what you would describe as the best childhoods or parents that stay together. My parents divorced.
Right.
Obviously, that was an influence and an experience that colored my world. But even the best, what you would describe as the best childhoods, have challenges that then you take experiences from and you create behaviors around that then you take into your adult life. So it's an ongoing process. We kind of think that there's a goal line that you're going to fix something and then it's going to be done and you're going to be healthy or better or whatever you're thinking. And it's not in fact true. It's a process and it's an ongoing process. So even if people listening thought, well, my childhood was perfect, there are still things that you can take from and learn.
Definitely. And I agree with you, Jude. Look, men experience, we know, right, from a psychological standpoint, I know that men and women, we're wired differently. We approach things differently. We are not the same, obviously. But how do men experience divorce differently from women?
Yes, that's a great question. So and we're talking generalities here, right, between masculine and feminine natures, which is okay. There are definitely differences between masculine natures and feminine natures, and men tend to like things to be very orderly. We like a set direction. We like to achieve that. We like steps. That's why we like to build, create stuff, and that kind of mindset. So when we start going through the divorce process. Because the majority of us, and even if we were the ones to file for divorce, but 70+ men are the ones that women 70% of women, 70% of divorces are initiated by women. That's what I was trying to say.
Okay.
That should have been. So oftentimes we're the ones that are then caught in kind of a reactionary mode, and then life becomes very chaotic. And we don't like, in our masculine natures, chaos. So this becomes very, very difficult. And the second part of that is men don't do as good a job as women in creating community. We may have done that, built our lives around our work, or built our lives around our families, or a mixture of both. We haven't really created that community around us. So that creates a perfect storm, if you will, for an even more challenging process for men, because it's chaotic and we don't like that, and it's hard, and we're isolated and lonely, and we don't have that support system. And so that's why I've built this community, so men can come together. Men have a place. We're all going through it together, or we've been through it. And there's a structure. There's a structure whether you're in our meetings. There's a structure whether you're doing one of our workshops, or if you're doing private coaching with me. There's a structure to kind of how to get through this. And then there's the support. There's the other men that are there going through it as well. So that's just a very basic level. We could get really deep into that if you wanted, Dr. White, but that's the general way that men go through divorce differently than women.
Okay, cool. And Divorced Dadvocate is the sort of a community that you're talking about.
Exactly. Yep. It's the Divorced Dadvocate community. And we've built this with free group meetings. We have workshops, we have classes, we have events, we have online events, we have in-person events, we have individual coaching, we have anything that a divorced or divorcing dad needs.
Right. And later I will ask for your contact so that persons can get in touch and be a
Sure.
part of the program. But look, I saw somewhere you advocate divorce as an opportunity. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, that's a tough one to wrap your head around, right? And if
Yeah.
anybody out there is listening that is going through a divorce that might not register right now, which I understand,
Yeah.
but it's an opportunity in the sense that you're going to be forced to make a change in your life. This is literally probably one of the biggest changes you're going to have in your life, whether you're doing it willingly or you're going kicking and screaming. It's an opportunity to make some changes in your life that can be a positive moving forward.
Right. Yeah.
So you might not see how that works, and it might be difficult, and it's most likely going to be incredibly painful, just as any changes, whether you're
Yeah.
changing your body in the gym and working out, your muscles are going to be in pain before you see the results and you start seeing the health benefits that you want. There's going to be some pain through this process. It's the same thing mentally and emotionally when you're doing this work. There's going to be some pain going through this before you build up whatever it might be. And so for me, and I'll give an example.
Yeah.
It was an opportunity for me to learn to get more present with my children. And I already felt that I was present. I was very involved father, but this really hyper focused me. And the reason it hyper focused me was the pain that I went through in not seeing my daughters 50% of the time, because we ended up with 50-50 parenting time. And that was very, very hard for me. I never got married, never had kids to be only seeing them half of the time.
Yeah.
And so what that forced me to do is, when I was with them, to learn to be present, to spend the time to filter out and put everything else out of my mind, design a lifestyle where I could be with them, where I could pick them up from school, maximize the amount of time that I was with them.
Yeah.
And so that was an opportunity for me to make that change, a lifestyle change, a mental, emotional change. And it's been absolutely amazing. I love my relationship with my daughters. It may have never, ever been that way or the same if I didn't go through this, this process and this difficult challenge.
Right. And I understand that the importance of opportunities and taking advantage of those opportunities, to make a change. Nadine Gardima, in her book July People, talk about when there's a change, there will be chaos and disorder and a bit of challenge until we get it right. Definitely. But the court process, is that briefly, is that a difficult thing to go through? Is it that the court process in itself is a challenge?
So, Dr. White, let me just ask you, anything you did the first time ever, was it easy?
No.
So,
It gets easier as you continue.
Yeah. Exactly. And the court process is exactly the same. Hopefully you haven't gone through this process more than once, right? And some folks have gone through it once or twice, maybe three or four times. But just like anything else you've not been exposed to or have had experience with, it is uncertain. You just don't know. You don't know. I remember the first time going in court and getting cross-examined in trial for divorce. And it was the first time ever. I had not been in court. So if you haven't done it, so you don't know. First time being deposed by my ex's attorney, you don't know what to expect. It's just, you don't know. And then you don't know the whole divorce process either. We kind of lean on attorneys for this and their expertise, but they have their limited scope of knowledge, which is just legal. They don't necessarily know mentally and emotionally what's going on with you, and they don't know your family. They're not going to get intimately involved with who your children are and what their needs are. That's what you need to do and what you need to bring to the table. So part of what we do too, and also part of a big part of what I do in individual coaching, is help the men through this process and try to get them to see and understand that they're kind of the coach or the bus driver, if you will, of their divorce process, that the attorneys are a part of it. The the courts are the legal system through which they're going to have to
Right.
get through, but they're going to need ideally a therapist and a coach and a financial planner and some support group that's going to help them. Hopefully a church community that's going to help them develop their spirituality and keep them focused on that as well. So yeah, it's the whole process, including the legal system, is very, very difficult and very challenging, mostly because you've never been through it.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you this question. Look, people never married to divorce. It's 99% of the time, that's true. You don't get married to be divorced. Is it that it's sort of a remote expectation? Are you saying that, hey, people must have this in the back of their mind, so to speak, that it's a possibility? It's a remote possibility.
Yeah, that's a great question. That's probably a conversation for an entire podcast, right? About the kind of the structure of society and what we think about marriage and how we come to decide that we're going to be married and the emphasis on marriage, and whether that's for some people a covenant and for some people it's contractual, and is there always the back door, and have we made no fault divorce so easy that it's okay? And it's very, very challenging topic, and I don't think there's just one answer to it. I'll say for me personally, I think that we have diminished the importance of the covenant of marriage. That this is something that is not just a contract. We've kind of moved it to this has become contractual. That we're going to do this. We're in a contract together, and it's more legalistic than it is something that is much deeper than that. And a covenant. When I say a covenant, it's something that is under God, something that is much deeper, something that is blessed and that is spiritual. And I'm not talking religious here, right?
No, I understand you.
I'm not specifically. I'm talking about something that is much deeper, because when you bring two people together, that is something that is much deeper. And when you bring two lives together, that's something that's much deeper than just a legalistic contract that, we're sharing an apartment and we might have a loan together on a car and a dog, right? It's much deeper than that. There's a great book by Dr. Scott Stanley. It's called The Power of Commitment. And he talks a lot about this and how we kind of backslide now in our modern society. And I was guilty of this, totally guilty of this with my ex-wife, which was, hey, you start dating and you move in together, and then you maybe have a checking account, and then you think, well, it's probably just easier we just get married. And you don't really think through that process of what you should be doing in order to prepare yourself for marriage. If you're a person that is ready for marriage, if both of you come together and then creating that life together. So that's a brief that's as brief of answer as I can give you on that. I got lots more. Maybe we'll come back together.
We can talk again another time and all of that. Look, I know you're with Divorced Dadvocate, and as I said, I like the name, I like the concept. But is there a process that you use to work with dads, to assist them through divorce?
Absolutely. Well, like I mentioned, the thing about being a man and a dad and going through this is the chaos is just heart-wrenching. I remember just laying in bed at night, just going through every scenario and wondering and just being heartbroken and sad and worried and just uncertain of all of this. So what I have done in my practice is structured a way in which I take each of my clients through, and I call it Dad's Guide to Divorce. And actually there's a brief summary to that. If anybody wants to go to dadsguidetodivorce.com, they can download this guide, and it's a simple 5-step guide. And the first, like I said, was clarifying your vision and direction, because this is an opportunity. So you've got to clarify your vision and direction of what you want post-divorce in order to start working towards that. Because if you don't know what you're working towards, or what you want your future life or your future self to look like, then you don't know what your next step is, and you can't take that first step towards what you want. The second part is strategizing your actions, and then developing what you want, and taking that first step. The next is going to be upgrade your skills. I mentioned that I needed to learn to get more present with my daughters.
Yeah.
First thing I started to do is to start learning how to be in the present moment, how to filter out thinking about the past and ruminating on that, or worrying about the future and getting stressed out about that, and learning how to get present. One of those things was just learning how to breathe through difficult emotions that might come up. And the next part is optimizing the environment, and this is taken basically from recovery, the recovery mindset that you're creating your mind, you're creating the environment around you that's going to be conducive to your success of those first 3 steps that you've done. And then the last one is mastering your psychology around this. So working on your mindset and how you're going to think about this process and go forward. So those are briefly the 5 steps. And again, anybody can download those at the website, or at the Divorced Dadvocate website, or they can go to Dad's Guide to Divorce and download it there as well.
Yeah. I have to have you back. I'm hoping to do that. But look, you have so much to talk about. But your experience as it relates to your divorce, we dabbled in that a bit earlier. But what was your experience with divorce? Let's talk more about that.
So I could probably write a case study in how to do it the most difficult and challenging way.
Yeah.
So it's mine was high conflict. Mine was challenging. There's lots of different scenarios that went through it, but there was there's mental illness and substance abuse and all kinds of challenges and police and all kinds of crazy, difficult things. But I do look back now 9 years later, and I see that everything has worked for me in my life in order to move me in a positive direction. And I think that was probably one of my biggest aha moments in this process, that life was always working for me and not against me. And it's true, because now I've started this work, and if I hadn't gone through this total hellish process over the years, I wouldn't have all of the wisdom to share with the other dads that helps them through this process. And I'm just getting started with this. This thing's growing. It's only been 2 years, and it's growing and growing. And so I can see that, even though, and this is my message of hope for any of the dads listening out there, that number one, you are strong enough to get through it. But looking back, you will see why this challenging time happened. And if you're willing to do the work and make the effort, that it's going to be a positive in your life in the future.
Did you initiate your divorce? Were you the one who initiated the divorce?
I did, yes.
Okay. And one of the things that I have had discussions with individuals who are divorced, and the person who initiated the divorce is sometimes, in most cases, always depressed, always felt, bad, right? In the sense that, hey, I'm stressed out, I'm depressed, even though I initiated the divorce.
Yes. And so I have a working theory around that, Dr. White, and that is that oftentimes the person that has initiated the divorce is the person that may have been the individual that was an overgiver, or may have been codependent, or may have been the one that's not in a healthy mental and emotional state, where they've finally gotten to the point where they've just had enough. And that lends them to feel guilty about what they're doing, because if you're familiar with codependency, a lot of it is based upon guilt and shame. And so they still feel that, just because they're starting a process of unraveling that unhealthy dynamic in the relationship by getting a divorce. They're still working through that mental and emotional issues that are going through they're going through, because that's a very hard thing for somebody who's codependent to set
Yeah.
a boundary, because
Yeah.
you're setting a boundary, right? By filing for divorce, that's a boundary. And then hopefully you're going to go through the divorce and you're going to stick to that boundary and actually finish the divorce. Oftentimes I do see this. You get somebody that is codependent, files for divorce, and then they go back on it because they go, oh, you get the fear comes up and all the emotions that come up and the guilt and everything else, and it's just too much. And then they say, oh, maybe we can reconcile. And you know, in hopefully that's something that might be something that prompts the couple to be able to save the marriage. But oftentimes it just creates more chaos and difficulty and challenge.
Yeah.
So
I'm happy that you aligned it with codependency. You know, it's you know, it's a psychological term that is very important, and you know, it happens. You know, even when people are drug addicted and you know and so on. But yeah, yeah, I like that concept, the tying in with that. But for dads, right? This is, you know, Father's Day, 2022, and you know, happy Father's Day to the dads out there. But it seems that it impacts dads differently. Those persons who are those men who are going through divorce and the children are not involved. It's sort of different from those who are dads, right? Talk to us about that, Jude.
Sure. So the number one thing is you are never, until the children, and even when the children are out of your house, you're not going to be separated from the relationship that you have with your ex or your soon to be ex. There's always going to be some sort of relationship because you're tied with them through the children. So that's the biggest thing that is different between somebody who's single or doesn't have kids in the marriage and dads, because you're always going to have some sort of communication with that. Whereas you could just say, hey, thanks, it was a good try, and you go on your way. But and so why that makes it challenging, Dr. White, is then you're getting a divorce in order to try to remedy that unhealthy dynamic that you had in that relationship. And if you're still in communication with that person, there's still going to be things that come up. There's still going to be that dynamic. And if you're not hyper focused on learning what you brought to the dynamic, healing from whatever it might be, moving forward, doing the work and making the effort that you need to, then you're just going to be replaying this. And I speak from experience and from doing that myself. I didn't do the work right away. I didn't figure out what the dynamic was. I didn't take the steps necessary to everything. Those 5 steps that I talked about, I didn't do any of them. And so what happened is just had the dynamic continuing with my ex, and then I just went and found another woman that was the same dynamic and started dating, right? And then that didn't work out, and then I found another one, and I'm going, well, why is it the same thing all the time, until I figured out the common denominator was me. And then I started to do the work. And so the dads that are listening, if you can do one thing, it is stop and try to understand the unhealthy dynamic that was present in the relationship, and start taking steps to work on yourself in order to make that healthier for your kids. Because here's again another opportunity, Dr. White, is they see you doing the work and making the efforts, and that is something that you can never ever show them or teach them without showing them and going through something as difficult and challenging as this.
Wow, interesting. There's a concept in psychology called repetitive relationship syndrome. It simply speaks to persons going into the same type of relationship, even though they have changed spouses. The same challenges they are going through, and sometimes it's that particular party, that the challenge, the source of the challenge. As you have said, you realize, hey, it must be a me thing. Right? And that's a sort of situation. So those listening to Canute Exploration, your topic in the podcast, can also research that repetitive relationship syndrome, and continue to talk to Jude and Canute Exploration, your topic in the podcast. Let me ask you though. There are some research. I'm data driven. I love the data. All right,
Yeah.
right, and I suspect that you are as well. And what does the research say about the impact of fathers on their children? We are Father's Day 2022. And again, happy Father's Day from Canute Exploration. Happy Father's Day to you too, Jude. I haven't said that to you, right?
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I was hoping you'd ask that question on Father's Day because
Right.
the number one indicator of a healthy and successful adult life for children is involvement from their father. And so I'll let you state all of the data, but all of the data supports this. All of the research support this is that the number one thing that you can do for your children as a father is to be involved in their lives. You don't have to be perfect. None of us are perfect. None of us are going to be the perfect fathers. And we even make mistakes. And I make mistakes all the time. And that can also be an opportunity to teach your kids that it's okay to make mistakes and how to apologize and do that. Everything is an opportunity through this, but stay involved with your kids. And that's sometimes hard going through this divorce process because there's a fight and there's a whole scale war on fathers and fatherhood, as far as I'm concerned, right now in society. It's become, and maybe it's not a war, maybe it's just a diminishment. I feel like it's a war because I see dads all day, every day that are in battles with trying to get time to spend with their kids, and they're good dads and they love their kids and they're being kept from them. So for me, sometimes it feels like a war, but it is at very least a diminishment of fathers in fatherhood in our society. And I just want to lift up every dad that's listening. There in the research, and we don't talk about the research, it's not on billboards out there anywhere, like anything else, that the number one thing you can do for your children is be involved in your life in whatever capacity you can do and you can manage. Stay involved.
Hey, we talked about females and males wired differently. Girls and boys, in effect. You have all girls. Tell
Yes.
me, what's your experience like just fathering girls? And do you have wish to have a spice of a boy there somewhere?
Well, I'm not a gambling man, and so if I started having more kids, I'd probably end up with a dozen girls. So I think I'm gonna leave it at 3 right now. And it's phenomenal. I would have never in a million years guessed that I would just have all three daughters, but it has been an amazing experience. They're remarkable young ladies now, 16, 14, and 12, and I'm getting to see them blossom into womanhood, which is an absolutely amazing process. The teen process can be challenging a little bit, right? But if you keep the right perspective around it, which I really try, and reframe that into something that is a positive, and that they're becoming adults, and it's beautiful to watch. It's remarkable. It's good. I love women. I love my daughters, and I love men. I love femininity. I love masculinity. I think it's designed to work beautifully together when it's done in a healthy manner. And I think it's a conversation that we need to have more often. We're pitting men and women, fathers and mothers, masculinity and femininity against each other, and it's absolutely unnecessary. It's meant to work in a dynamic that is uplifting and beautiful and complementary. And if we started thinking about it and talking about it in that manner, I think we'd have much more productive conversations and much healthier relationships.
Definitely. And as we wrap up shortly, look, you have all girls and you're a single parent, okay? Are you? Right.
Yeah. Yep.
Definitely. So
full-time single dad. Yes.
Look at that. So I cannot let you go before asking you the experience of that. A single father, right? Parent, patriarchal. But my thing is that, how is it that you singly father girls talk to us about that.
Okay, so this could be a very long conversation too. I will say that it being a single parent, whether you're a single dad or a single mother, takes an immense amount of effort. There is a reason we're designed to co-create with men and women and have a family together and raise children together like that.
Right.
So the normalization of single parenting is a big challenge for me. And it's a challenge that I've lived. So I know what an incredible challenge it is. It is a lot of effort to parent children by yourself.
Right.
And I am cognizant of the fact that I cannot provide them everything that they need as a single dad all by myself. I can't, as much as I try to bring some of the feminine nature to my life and my understanding. I'm still a male, and there's just stuff that is not inherent to me to know and understand and be able to do with them. And so I do try to augment that with other things and other women in their lives and influences and spending the time in talking with them about that. And like I said, with one of my steps, creating an environment that's conducive for them to have some of those things. But it's not possible as a single parent to do everything all of the time. And the flip side of that is that's okay. Yeah. That's okay. Don't be so hard on yourself. Having the nature I had, that was shame inducing for me for a very long time. That was very hard because that's not what I ever envisioned. And I worked very hard to create the family, get married, do everything I thought, and then it didn't work out. Yeah. And so it's okay. There is a life experience that you're supposed to have. They're supposed to have meaning your children. That is going to come through. That they're going to learn. And so. And I'll give you one quick example on that, Dr. White, is my 16-year-old daughter we had a conversation about a challenging teacher that she was having at school. And I made the point, well, you're going to have challenging people in your lives. Often you're going to have challenging bosses. You're going to have challenging friends, relationships coming forward. And she said, Dad, I think that I'm not going to be too worked up about it. It's not going to be too big of a deal. And in my life, I've dealt with the challenges that I've had with my mom, with the divorce, et cetera. And I feel pretty confident of how to get through that. And so as much as I would have ever wanted to try to teach that, her going through it was the best teacher for her in figuring that out. So we just don't know what the journey is.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you said that. But do you write? Published books?
I know just the articles. I've got articles on Medium as well as Thrive Global. So I'll do I do lots of articles, and then the website at thedivorcedadvocate.com has a weekly blog. So it's a weekly dad blog post. That's just advice, tips, knowledge, inspiration for dads to read on a regular basis. And then if you sign up at the website, you'll get regular reminders of our meetings, of our classes, of our events, of the blog posts, of the new podcast. I have the Divorced Dadvocate podcast also that's been going for a couple of years now. And every week we have a new episode that comes out, and you can find that on any of the major podcast platforms as well as YouTube. Also.
What's the name of the podcast? Can you say that again?
It is called The Divorced Dadvocate. It's all the Divorced Advocate. Everything is the Divorced Advocate. We're advocates for dads, and the community is built with a bunch of dads that are going through or have gone through divorce, and we're just supporting each other with help and resources and getting through the process.
Right. So along with Can Youth Exploration, your topic in the podcast, I want you to also check out the Divorced Advocate, the podcast that Jude talk about. And listen, learn something that on Father's Day, we really. Are there any other contact information that you'd like to give, Jude?
The website's the best way. You can schedule time directly with me if you'd like to chat about anything that you've got going on with your divorce. There's also an awesome divorce quiz that I've got up at the website, Dr. White, and it's an opportunity to kind of gauge where you're at compared to where other people who have gone through the process are at. And so it takes about 10 minutes. You go through, it's 100 questions, and then it'll give you some immediate results in 5 different categories of where you're at. And then you can see where you're doing well, where you might need a little bit of help. And then if you also need to review those results, you'll have a free opportunity to sit down with me and go through those. And we can kind of talk about within the context of my 5-step process, what you can do to help yourself through the process. Yeah. And so that's at the website under the Divorce Quiz tab, or you can find it directly at thedivorcequiz.com.
Okay, so those of you watching, those of you listening, go to the website, thedivorceddadvocate.com, and there's a quiz there. Engage in it, take it, right, and see where you're at. Those who are pending divorce or have been divorced, get in touch with Jude. Let's talk, right? I'll try to get him back, hopefully, to talk about those 5 steps, one day. But Jude, it's so nice to have you and Canute Exploration, your topic in a podcast. Really appreciate it.
Dr. White, my pleasure. Happy Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to all the dads listening. Stay strong and stay in your kids' lives. And God bless.
All right. God bless, Jude. So that was Jude. You heard him, right? I just want you to visit the website, right? divorcedadvocate.com, and engage in some of the resources and take the quiz and get in touch with Jude, right? Happy Father's Day to all the dads, and enjoy the day. Continue to share, comment, rate, and goodbye.